Good afternoon, everybody. If I could have your attention. I know it's fun to chat, but we've got work to do. I'm Kwame Anthony Appiah. I'm president of the Academy. It's my pleasure to preside. That's what presidents do. And I want to begin just by asking you to wear a mask if you've got one. And I'm going to take mine off now, but only because I'm speaking. I will put it back on when I sit down. My mother and I published a collection of some 7,500 proverbs in my father's language, Tree, the language spoken by many of the Akan people of Ghana. Sometimes I use that book the way some people use the I Ching of Confucius, or the Romans used the entrails of dead chickens. So since it's 5:18 today, I looked up Proverb 5:18. Here's what it says. De odi kain paria, de odi achre khrayi. And as I'm sure you all know, that means if the leader stumbles, the person behind him will take care of things. So I promise to try not to stumble too much, but I have many followers, a team of vice presidents who can step in if I do. So I'm delighted, as I'm sure you are, that we're able to meet for Ceremonial after hiatus since May 22nd, 2019, before the pandemic was upon us. In those pandemic years, we've learned to live more on the web, and that has left us with some new practices. In particular today, we're live streaming these ceremonies for the first time through the Academy's website. So I'd like to welcome not only those of you here in the hall with us, but those of you online. There's occasional signs of some other work that we're doing during the pandemic in the way of renovations, including a little bit here in the hall. I'm particularly pleased that the plans will make our buildings more accessible to people in wheelchairs. We'll keep you posted with our building plans through the website as they develop in dialogue with our neighbors and with the city. One other change I want to mention is that after more than a century with a membership of 250, we'll be growing to 300 members over the next few years, a relatively small increase since the population of our country has grown almost fourfold since it was set at 250. We have a lot of work to do today. We have 18 new members and 3 honorary members to induct, 65 awards and $1.3 million to confer. But above all, we have a chance to celebrate in person again after that long interval and to take pleasure in simply being together again. So before we turn to our festive business, let me say the traditional Akan response to a greeting at Christmas or New Year's, which is, Afinkombambe tuyeda. May the year go and come and meet us here again. So we begin today's program with the induction of 1 American honorary member and 2 foreign honorary members. The Academy's American honorary membership began nearly 40 years ago to recognize Americans of extraordinary artistic achievement whose work falls outside of or transcends the 4 traditional departments of the Academy. Foreign honorary membership comprises 75 distinguished artists from other countries whose work the Academy greatly admires. Unfortunately, our 3 new honorary members are unable to be with us today, but I want to read their citations aloud and welcome them in their absence. Perhaps they are following us on live stream. First, Joni Mitchell, singer-songwriter of California and British Columbia. Emerging from the 1960s folk revival, Joni Mitchell created an original and influential body of work transcendent in poetic and musical ideas. Singing with virtuosity and grace, from Both Sides Now and Big Yellow Taxi to Lakota and beyond, Mitchell crossed genres ranging from folk to pop to jazz in collaboration with Charles Mingus, Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, and others. Singing of emotional experiences and the conflict between connection and freedom, her elliptical and interior lyrics, perfectly matched with vocal delivery, are emotionally etched in the memories of millions and continue to be reinterpreted by artists today. She's a wild seed. Let the wind carry her. Kazuo Ishiguro, writer of England. Kazuo Ishiguro, the British novelist, short story writer, screenwriter, and musician, is almost unimaginably gifted and distinguished. In 2017, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature, the Swedish Academy saying that he had, quote, in novels of great emotional force, uncovered the abyss beneath our illusory sense of connection with the world. From 1989's Remains of the Day to his most recent work, Clara and the Sun, Ishiguro's novels reach the highest levels of artistry as well as empathy with the human condition. And then Bridget Riley, artist of England. The work of Bridget Riley is pivotal to the history of geometric abstraction. Riley's iconic black and white paintings of the 1960s, whose disorienting surfaces appear to vibrate, are exemplary of the artist's groundbreaking engagement with the dynamic nature of perception. Over subsequent decades, Riley has continued to explore the dramatic sensorial effects of subtle changes in color, line, and pattern in painting. The optical illusions in Riley's works continually ask viewers to imagine what and how they see. We look forward to welcoming these three extraordinary individuals in person in the future. Annabelle Seldorf, one of our vice presidents for architecture, will now induct our new architect members.
Mask off, glasses on. It's my very great pleasure to induct 4 new members into the Department of Architecture. Will the new members please come to the lectern when I read your name? Deborah Burke. As the Dean of the Yale School of Architecture, Deborah Burke leads by the power of her example, not by the example of her power. From her earliest days as dean, Burke has spoken of the need for collaboration, for the architect's responsibility to the larger world, and for a balance of life and work. She has done this in her own successful and exemplary practice, and by shifting the focus of architecture education is ultimately effecting a much-needed sea change in our profession. Thomas Pfeiffer. The architect Thomas Pfeiffer was trained in the catechism of rigorous modernism, but upon opening his independent practice, he found his own voice, an imaginative yet restrained amplification of his many gifts. Over the years, he's been rewarded by the receipt of many prestigious commissions, and his designs for private residences are best characterized as architectural haikus. His luminous artistic contributions enrich the profession, and his exquisite work is at the highest standard of any architect practicing today. Michael van Valkenburg. Michael van Valkenburg has had a very profound effect on the American landscape. Brooklyn Bridge Park has changed the lives of millions of visitors and those who live in the city by opening up the waterfront to the public. He has done this in ways that are beautiful and at the deepest level joyful. His award-winning work has graced countless campuses and institutions, and his projects in the public realm have redefined the meaning of democratic space. Mabel Wilson. Mabel Wilson is one of the most important figures today in the transformation of the way architectural history is taught. Focusing on African American contributions to the built environment, her thinking on monuments and memory is particularly powerful at this time of reckoning. She was a part of the team that designed the University of Virginia's memorial to enslaved laborers, of which Holland Coder said, "Power is not its language. Closure is not its goal. Active, additive remembrance is." Wilson is a scholar and an activist and a voice of wisdom. And congratulations. Congratulations to all. Joan Jonas, Vice President for Art, will now induct our new artist members.
Hello, I'm honored to be here in this capacity. The first artist that we welcome is Susan Freakon. Are you here, Susan? Yeah. Susan Freakon's paintings stand like sentinels. The light she creates with extraordinary color shifts changes with the viewer's movements. The work's powerful experience is quiet and sits outside of time. Her drawings, which are exceptional, are intellectually generous and reveal how thoughtfully she makes decisions. They move across the paper in the present tense. Susan. Charles Gaines. Are you here, Charles? Hi. Over a long career, Charles Gaines has resolutely forged a reckoning between rigorously structured systems of order and vagaries of lived reality. Best known for images from nature filtered through plotted grids, he has also created such works as librettos, Manuela de Falla, Stokely Carmichael, which presented congruities between a 1904 opera by a Spanish composer and a 1967 speech by Carmichael. Gaines is a deeply influential artist, philosopher, whose work engages the mind and the eye with equal force. In his hands, art meets life in uncanny and profound ways. Congratulations. Finally, Arthur Jaffa, who could not be here today. Jaffa's genre-defying 4-decade-long career has ranged from award-winning cinematography to his own visionary authorship of singular film video works that function as long-form visual notebooks and meditations on the aesthetics of Black American life. His work draws its prismatic sources from the high of Black church hymns to the low of the scrolling image overload of Instagram. Jaffa's work is crucial for our time, an unstintingly radical vision stated in imbricated form and content. Congratulations, Arthur.
Hello, I'm Paul Muldoon, and it's my great honour to induct 6 new members from the Department of Literature. Will the new members please come to the lectern when I read your name. One or two will be coming to the lectern, I'm afraid. Only one or two. Particularly sad that Lydia Davis is unable to be with us today. A recipient of several of literature's highest honours and awards, Lydia Davis has long been esteemed as one of the most original writers of our time, admired for her unusualness, formal ingenuity, philosophical thinking, poetical precision, humour, and wit. Her fiction has often been said to defy description or categorization, though I think we've managed it just now. What is unequivocally clear is that she has created a body of work that is one of the great contributions to American letters. So we're delighted to welcome Lydia Davis. Terence Hayes, I'm thrilled to say, is with us today. The publication in 2018 of American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin confirmed what earlier collections had already intimated, that Terence Hayes is a major American poet. His technical prowess and boundless wit might be construed by some as admirable in themselves, but they are also unerringly at the service of a vision of a parallel world where all Doctor Who's are black. An America rendered with equal attention to pain and possibility. I lock you in an American sonnet that is part prison, part panic closet, a little room in a house set aflame. Terence Hayes. I regret to say that N. Scott Momaday is also unable to be with us today. Momaday of the Kiowa Nation came of age between two eras. In one, memory was supreme, and language wove living beings of it. In the other, all that was deemed necessary became the written word. House Made of Dawn was the first of his many creations to bring it all together in powerful oratory. Though we might be broken, we are spoken beautifully into understanding that we become the land and the land becomes us. N. Scott Momaday. Tim O'Brien was meant to be with us today. He was almost with us today at the last moment. He couldn't make it. I think his flight was cancelled. Tim O'Brien's brilliant and searing The Things They Carried is the most heralded and widely anthologized linked stories collection in contemporary American literature. The author is also a great novelist whose investigations of moral choice, ambiguity, the psychology of concealment and denial, and the nature of truth seek finally to transcend violence. Recognized for advancing peace through literature, he is an innovative narrative artist, a psychologically probing portraitist of the modern American soldier, and one of our foremost literary writers. So welcome, Tim O'Brien. And then Elizabeth Strout. Yes. So nice to see you. Very much. In Elizabeth Strout's novels and stories, the least likable character is free to claim center stage, while the anger that should overwhelm another character fails to materialize. Again and again, the reader's expectations of how narratives must proceed are upended, and we are shown the world not as we imagine it, but as it is. Strout's books bear witness to life's many hardships with respect and honesty. She is one of our finest writers. And then Amy Tan. Amy Tan, a pioneer of world literature. Her first book, The Joy Luck Club, is an American classic and has been required reading for 5 generations. That's hard to imagine, 5 generations. After that breakthrough novel, drawn from her own family's history in China and San Francisco, Amy Tan has written more than a dozen works of fiction and non-fiction. Her work has been staged widely and filmed successfully and has been translated into 35 languages. As a literary citizen and a voice of compassion and inclusion, Amy Tan is without peer. So, congratulations to our new writers and welcome to the Academy. And now Augusta Reed Thomas, who's the Vice President for Music, will induct our new composer members. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm thrilled and honored that this year we are inducting 5 new members to the Academy in Music. Will the composer members please come to the podium as I read your name? The first is John Luther Adams, who could not be with us today. From Alaska's boreal forests to New York City, to Baja California, and from rural New Mexico, John Luther Adams has made a boldly experimental body of music that transcends the landscapes that have nurtured it. His compositions extend across time and space to generate their own gravity and sense of place. In our swiftly changing world, his music is an invitation to stillness, both a refuge and a reminder of what we stand to lose. Jennifer Higdon. As a vital composer in contemporary classical music, Jennifer Higdon has earned prestigious accolades for her compositions, ranging from chamber to choral to large ensemble and opera. As a flutist and a devoted teacher, she has been a dynamo in education and the new music scene in our society during the past 3 decades. Her music has inspired people of all generations, and her significant contribution to American music is unmistakable. Anna Lockwood. Anna Lockwood has long been an influential and pioneering figure in the world of experimental art and sound art. She was one of the first musicians to revive interest in glass as a rich sonic medium and to establish sound mapping as an important form and process in the emergent fields of soundscape art and acoustic ecology. Still working in boldly experimental veins, Lockwood is an inspiring and encouraging presence to, it says here, young composers, but I would say to all composers. David Sanford. Awesome. David is a composer of a bold and explosive series of pieces for orchestra and chamber ensembles with a style new and confrontational, as well as sturdy and intelligible. Black Noise, for the Boston Modern Orchestra Project, confirms the presence of a composer whose music is both startling and memorable. Congratulations. Christopher Theophanides. Christopher Theophanides is one of the most frequently performed composers in the United States today. The reasons for this are not far to seek. His music is rhythmically lively, colorfully orchestrated, and always deeply and passionately expressed. From his many services to the field of American music, to his stature as a sought-after teacher, Christopher Theophanides has given generously to the field. Bravo.
So congratulations and welcome to all our new members, and please come to dinner often. We'll put you to other kinds of work as well, though. We turn now to the awards section of today's program. Since 1941, the Academy has given awards to architects, visual artists, writers, and composers in recognition of outstanding achievement. 21 Arts and Letters Awards and numerous special awards established through gifts and bequests will be presented this afternoon by the chairs and members of our various award committees. You'll find a citation for each recipient in your program. And now I'm going to ask Toshiko Mori to present the awards in architecture.
Good afternoon. I'm Toshiko Mori, Chair of the Academy's Award Committee for Architecture. The other members of the committee were Marlon Blackwell, Peter Eisenman, Stephen Hall, Annabelle Seldorf, Nadia Teherani, and Mijin Yoon. This year, 3 Arts and Letters Awards of $10,000 each recognize architects whose work is characterized by a strong personal direction. Please come to the lectern when your names are called. Anton Garcia Abril and Deborah Mesa. Florian Eidenberg and Jing Lu. Sharon Johnston and Mark Lee. A 4th Arts and Letters Award of $10,000 recognizes Americans who explore ideas in architecture through any medium of expression. This award goes to Anthony Titus. In 1955, a bequest from Emma Beatrice Brunner, widow of Academy member Arnold W. Brunner, established a prize to an architect of any nationality who has made a significant contribution to architecture as an art. The $20,000 award goes to Calma Piños of Spain. Stay.
Sorry, my shoes are broken.
The Academy's citation reads, Calma Piños' architecture engages her strength of reason with compassion for humanity, harmonizing emotion and rationality. Each building is embedded within the terrain, connecting and transforming its context. Her curvilinear forms blend with their surroundings, blurring the boundary between the physical world and memory. A complex series of sections within each project results in a spectacular spatial experiences, while the innate rationality of her plans is influenced by her lyrical intuition to become fluid expressions of openness. Wow. And Catherine Murphy will now present the awards in art.
Hi. All right. Hello, I'm Catherine Murphy, chair of this year's Award Committee for Art. The other Academy members who participated in the selection of award recipients were Mel Chin, Glenn Ligon, Judy Pfaff, Joel Shapiro, Amy Silman, and Peter Saul. There are 5 Arts and Letters Awards in Art of $10,000 each to honor exceptional accomplishments and encourage creative work. Please come to the lectern when your name is called. Candida Alvarez. Congratulations. Here you go. Garrett Bradley. Congratulations. Kelty Ferris. No, honey. Okay, wait a minute, I gotta give it to you. All right, there you go, sweetie. Thank you. And Judy Fox. Congratulations. Rachel Harrison, who could not be at the ceremony today, unfortunately. Name for Academy member Jacob Lawrence and his wife, the painter Gwendolyn Knight Lawrence. The next 2 $10,000 awards recognize outstanding achievement in the visual arts. The Gwendolyn Knight Lawrence Award goes to Ellen Birkenblit. There you are. The Jacob Lawrence Award goes to Suzanne Jackson, who could not be with us today. The Rosenthal Family Foundation Award of $10,000 acknowledges a young painter of distinction. This year it goes to Kirsten Bratich, who could not join us today. The Academy's purchase program begun in 1946 through a bequest from the American Impressionist painter Childe Hassam to fund the placement of work by talented living American artists in museums across the country. Since its inauguration, the program has spent nearly $5 million to purchase over 1,400 works of art, which have been donated to museums in all 50 states. In 2022, the Academy purchased works from the following artists, some of whom are here today. Please stand when I call your name. Andrea Bellag. Carl de Alvia. Hadi Falapisha. Pam Lins. Matt Saunders. Shanique Smith. Martine Sims. Congratulations to all the Art Award and Purchase Prize recipients. Amy Hempel will now begin the presentation of awards in literature.
As the chair of the 2022 Award Committee for Literature, I am thrilled to present these first several awards. The other members of the committee were Louise Gluck, John Guare, Edward Hirsch, Sigrid Nunez, Carol Phillips, and Joy Williams. This year, the Academy will give 8 Arts and Letters Awards in literature of $10,000 each to honor exceptional accomplishment in any genre. Will the winners please come to the lectern when your name is called? Catherine Barnett. I'm trying. Joanne Beard. Alicia Harris.
Thank you so very much.
Sarah Manguso. Next, Joyelle McSweeney. Susan Brind Morrow. Doug Peacock has received his award. That's how cool he is. Would you please stand? He's in the audience. Congratulations. Adrienne Nathan West. Oh, here you are. Martina Mayoke. In 1979, this next prize was established to honor the memory of the writer Sue Kaufman. It's given annually for the best debut novel or collection of short stories published in the preceding year. It is also now supported by an additional gift from the estate of Jeanette Hayen Ballard, who received the Sue Kaufman Prize in 1987. The 2022 prize of $5,000 goes to Jackie Paulzine for the novel Brood. The Catherine Ann Porter Award of $20,000, established by the estate of the Academy member, novelist, and story writer, honors writers whose achievements and commitment to the craft have been demonstrated. It goes this year to Lynn Tillman. Joy Williams will now present the next 4 literature awards.
The Rosenthal Family Foundation Award in Literature is given to a young writer for a work of fiction published during the preceding year that is a considerable literary achievement. Early recipients include Elizabeth Spencer, John Updike, and Joyce Carol Oates. The $10,000 award goes to Kirsten Valdez. Congratulations. For the 5 wounds. Thank you. Harold Versailles was vice president and managing editor of Farrar, Straus and Giroux, where he worked from 1951 until his death in 1977. This $20,000 award was established in his memory to single out writing that merits recognition for the quality of its prose style. The award goes to Joshua Cohen, who unfortunately will not be with us today. "2022 marks the 125th anniversary of Academy member Thornton Wilder's birth. Though Wilder is most known for his plays and novels, he was also an accomplished translator. This $20,000 prize, established by Wilder's family, honors a significant contribution to the art of literary translation. It goes to Edith Grossman. Who sadly could not be with us today. The poet, critic, scholar, and editor, Morton Dowin Zabel, established this biennial award through a bequest in 1966 to be given in rotation to writers of progressive, original, and experimental tendencies. This year, the $10,000 award goes to Patricia Lockwood. Who also couldn't be here today. But now, Henri Cole will present the Award of Merit Medal and the Walker Award.
The Award of Merit Medal, which is accompanied by a prize of $25,000, is given this year to an outstanding poet, Stephen Dobbins, who unfortunately could not be with us today. But I would like to read the Academy's citation. Of how many poets can it be said that their work changed the art itself? Working in the American vernacular, Stephen Dobbins reimagined narrative in poem after poem. Impeccable logic yields surreal outcome. So much for our poignant reliance on reason. But reason is all we have, the tool we use to negotiate our deep misunderstandings and competing agendas. Dobbins writes with the despairing moral vision of the prophets, but these poems are utterly, permanently alive. In their wild comedy and daring and searing candor, they track the damage we do to each other and the parallel bitter wars within the self. Congratulations, Stephen Dobbins, if you're watching. The Christopher Lightfoot Walker Award of $100,000 was established by the estate of Amber Lightfoot Walker in honor of her son, and is given to a prose writer who has made a significant contribution to American literature. The first 2 recipients of the award were Thomas Pynchon and Leslie Marmon Silko. I am honored to now name the award's 3rd recipient, Phillip Lopate. Phillip, will you please join me at the lectern? Thank you. The Academy's citation reads as follows. Phillip Lopate is one of the most brilliant and original essayists now working. So varied are his modes: the personal essay, the memoir, the novel, the critical study, and poems too, and so wide-ranging his interests as to make his immense achievement difficult to characterize. His mind is supple, ardent, skeptical, capable of a tonic malice on occasion, but equally capable of articulate and passionate homage. He has sustained the lively openness of the student who observes and hypothesizes, refusing admirably to harden into the judge, that arbiter of standards and policies. He is a master and also a joy to read.
Wait, they really want to make sure they have $100,000 in here. Yes. I was asked to speak for about a minute. Let me say that this award was a great shock to me when I got it. It seemed to me the kind of thing that happened to other writers, not to me, especially since usually fiction writers, poets, and dramatists receive these awards, and not essayists. It's very rare that an essayist would get an award like this. So I accept this award for all essayists. I must admit that I had gotten used to toiling on the margins of the literary Parthenon and feeling that I was not a member of the club, and this award has really done great damage to my self-image. I am now going to have to comport myself as a star and learn to be a self-important asshole. Which should not be too difficult. In any case, I'm very grateful to the Christopher Lightfoot Award for giving this to me, to the members of the committee who selected me, and finally, most of all, to my family and friends who came here to cheer me on today. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Philip. Thank you for coming. Thank you for speaking to us. And now Augusta Reed Thomas will present the awards in music.
This year's awards committee was chaired by Chen Yi, and other members of the committee included John Corigliano, Stephen Hartke, George Lewis, Chinna Ryung, Julia Wolf, and myself. I'm pleased to present 18 emerging and experienced composers awards for those that have demonstrated excellence in their field. 4 Arts and Letters Awards of $10,000 each recognize outstanding artistic achievement for composers who have arrived at their own voice. The winners also receive $10,000 towards a recording of their work, and they will have their music presented here in a concert in the Academy's library. The first is Marcos Balter. Next is Aaron Gee. James Moberly, who is not able to be with us today. And Aaron Travers. The Walter Hinrichsen Award is given for a publication of a work by a gifted composer. This year, it goes to Orlando Jacinto Garcia. The Andrew Embry Award in Music was inaugurated in 2012 by Academy member and composer Andrew Embry and his wife Barbara for a mid-career composer of demonstrated artistic merit. And this year, we are very pleased to present this to Mike Holliber. In 1969, Harmony Ives, the widow of composer and Academy member Charles Ives, left the Academy the royalties to all of her husband's music. And since then, we have used this income to present more than $4 million in grants and prizes to composers. It gives me great pleasure to present the Charles Ives Fellowship of $15,000 to each of two very talented composers. The first is Leila Audu Gilmore. And the second is Sungji Hong. Six Charles Ives scholarships of $7,500 each are given to exceptional students for continued study in composition. Marco Jimenez was unable to be with us today, but we should celebrate him for sure. The next is Brittany Green. Paul Novak. Nicole Russell. Michael Seltenreich. Kari Watson. The Vladimir and Rhonda Leconde Award in Music, of $10,000 was inaugurated in 1993 and is given to an accomplished mid-career composers. This year, it goes to Catherine Balch. Two Goddard Lieberson Fellowships of $15,000 were endowed in 1978 by the CBS Foundation and are given to mid-career composers of exceptional gifts. The first is Michael Gilbertson. And the second is Eric Nathan. In 2013, the board of directors of the Virgil Thompson Foundation endowed this biennial award of $40,000 for a composer of vocal music. The award is named for Academy member and composer Virgil Thompson, who was and remains world-renowned for his vocal compositions. I'm very pleased to present this year's award to Justin Delajoyo. Congratulations to all of those music award winners, and David Lang will now present the Richard Rogers Award in Music Theater.
Hi there, I'm David Lang. It is my great good fortune to be a member of the Richard Rogers Award Committee. In 1979, Academy member Richard Rogers endowed awards to fund productions of musicals by nonprofit theaters in New York City by emerging composers and writers. The other members of the selection committee were Lynn Ahrens, Christopher Diaz, Mindy Dickstein, Amanda Green, Michael R. Jackson, Richard Maltby Jr., and John Weidman. This year, 2 musicals received staged reading awards. Please come to the lectern when I call your name. J. Eddy for Driving in Circles. There you go. And congratulations, so really good. I really enjoyed it too. So, yeah. And now, please welcome Sarah Cooper and Lynn Schenkel for Perpetual Sunshine and the Ghost Girls. Thank you so much. I'm going to shake your hand. Thank you. And congratulations to all of these people, and we look forward to seeing these musicals come to life on stage. And of course, we look forward to seeing you all attend these musicals as well. Thanks.
In 1916, we like to historicize here, Evangeline Wilbur Blashfield established a fund to invite distinguished speakers to deliver formal addresses on the preservation, beauty, and integrity of the English language. The address has since evolved to be on any aspect of arts and letters, though you're free to address the preservation, beauty, and integrity of the English language if you choose. Past speakers have included Helen Keller, Ian Forster, Robert Frost, Wallo Shienka, and Edna O'Brien. This year, David Remnick will deliver the Blashfield Address. As I'm sure you all know, he's the longtime editor of The New Yorker, a seasoned reporter, biographer, Pulitzer Prize winner, and member of the Academy.
I'm honored to give the Blashfield Address. Unfortunately, I can't be here today. Thank you very much. In my salad days as a newspaper reporter, I would get extremely frustrated with editors and their intolerable demands for clarity, brevity, and other Philistine concerns. When I was briefly a sports writer, editors would go so far as to insist that I forego the demands of art to inform the reader of the final score, preferably in the first 10 paragraphs of the story. These constraints on sensibility seemed to me highly unreasonable, and yet I was advised by more experienced colleagues at the paper never to lose my temper. An editor is a creature to be pitied. An editor is a creature of a lower order, one ancient columnist told me, a mouse training to be a rat. And it's with that reality in mind today that, as an editor, I am especially humbled to stand before an assembly of true artists. I also want to thank the Academy for quite another reason. In addition to its role as a champion of accomplishment in the arts and letters, the Academy is dedicated to reminding its cohort of our provisional status as living beings. I refer, of course, to those elegant cream-colored envelopes that come whistling through the mail slot with alarming regularity to inform us who among our number is no longer. It used to be that the worst I could find in the mail was my Amex bill. My wife will sometimes see me tearing open one of those little envelopes and now ask, who's dead? For the moment, at least, one can answer, clicking one's heels merrily, not me, not yet. So thank you for that, too. Thank you for those whispers of the approaching reaper. What I'd like to talk about briefly today is the matter of stories. Everyone in this room today is intimately and professionally familiar with their power. Stories do many essential things. They can rescue us from despair. They can convey an alien world and a sensibility. And they can distract us from teeming boredom. Not least, they convey the inner lives of others, and in doing so, make us feel less alone in the world. Sometimes, however, even the most visionary storytellers can fall short. For one thing, they can fail to imagine or anticipate the future of tyranny. Chekhov wrote his plays at around the turn of the century, and yet when the talk in them turns to cruelty, the modern reader senses a poverty of imagination. Here is Alexander Solzhenitsyn writing in the first volume of Gulag Archipelago about those very limitations. If the intellectuals in the plays of Chekhov who spent all their time guessing what would happen in 20, 30, or 40 years had been told that interrogation by torture would soon be practiced in Russia, that prisoners would have their skulls squeezed with iron rings, that a human being would be lowered into an acid bath, that they would be trussed up naked to be bitten by ants and bedbugs, that a ramrod heated over a Primus stove would be thrust up their anal canal, known as the secret brand, that a man's genitals would be slowly crushed beneath the toe of a jackboot, and that in the luckiest possible circumstances, prisoners would be tortured by being kept from sleeping for a week, by thirst, and by being beaten to a bloody pulp. Not one of Chekhov's plays would have gotten to its end, because all the heroes would have gone off to insane asylums. So it's notable that when certain writers do bring the news in advance, It's an exception. It doesn't happen very often. Orwell managed this. So does Yevgeny Zamyatin in his novel, We. More recently, in the prophetic mode, we think of The Fire Next Time, White Noise, The Handmaid's Tale. In Putin's Russia, Vladimir Sorokin anticipated the tightening vice and the peculiar modernity of the current regime with an uncanny prescience. In 2006, Sorokin wrote The Day of the Oprichnik, which features a ruler much like Ivan Grozny, Ivan the Terrible, and a capital city increasingly walled off from the rest of the world. The autocrat is paranoid, isolated, and vengeful. He is protected by the Oprichniki, the black-suited secret service. The novel is structured around the lines of one day in the life of Ivan Denisovich, in this case, a day in the life of one of the tyrant's guards, as he indulges, over a 24-hour period, his professional depredations with relish. Last week on May 9th, Victory Day, Sorokin's real-life role model stood before the microphone on Red Square and in front of a vast array of soldiers and intercontinental ballistic missiles told a story, a fable about a country that he had invaded but did not deign to name or acknowledge as a sovereign reality. That country, of course, is Ukraine. Russia, the storyteller went on, was forced to order this operation because neo-Nazis and Banderites, backed by the United States and their minions, threatened the motherland. There are many varieties of narrative, of course. Putin's is a narrative of salvation, the salvation of brother Slavs. In reality, of course, this salvation has left tens of thousands dead and whole cities and towns in ruins. And in Putin's Russia, this narrative, this salvation story, is not one story. It's the only story. All other stories are punishable by up to 15 years in prison. It's worth remembering that the course of post-Soviet history was not necessarily headed in this direction. Mikhail Gorbachev, the General Secretary, the last General Secretary, and Boris Yeltsin, the first Russian president, were hardly fully formed Democrats, nor did they have the advantage of being forged in the Enlightenment. They were bred in the swamp of the Soviet nomenclatura. Gorbachev emerged from the Stavropol Communist Party apparat, and Yeltsin from the Sverdlovsk Communist Party apparat. And each in their own way, each in his own way, spent many years as a heads-down, rule-adhering hack. Distinction must let rebellion was impermissible, which is part of what makes them so remarkable historically. Even with that stunted political and moral upbringing, even with their many mistakes, some of them colossal mistakes, both men made significant contributions to at least imagining a freer, more open, more democratic society, where none had been in 1,000 years of autocracy and 7 decades of communist rule. Both men liberated their people in no small part by opening the books after decades of state censorship on the true breadth of Russian history, Russian letters, Russian free thought. Brodsky, Akhmatova, both Mandelshtam's, Nabokov, Tsvetaeva, Solzhenitsyn. Scholars were suddenly published. Music was liberated. A press evolved. In order to liberate their people, they had to liberate their stories. At first, Yeltsin hoped that his successor would be a Democrat of the next generation, someone like Boris Nemtsov, a young, distinctly progressive politician and intellectual. But as the economy deteriorated, as the war in Chechnya grew bloodier, as Yeltsin's health diminished and his boozing grew worse, as democracy itself lost so much prestige among ordinary Russians that it was referred to now as dermokratia, not democratia, but dermokratia, shitocracy. After all that, Yeltsin turned instead to a stalwart of the secret services. The goal now was national stability and the personal protection of the Yeltsin family. And Yeltsin turned for that, tragically, to Vladimir Putin. As a man of the KGB, Putin understood the importance of stories and sought to monopolize them. Television at that time, for example, was relatively free. Every week, the station called NTV aired a show of acidic political satire called Kukli, or Puppets. And as soon as he gained national political prominence, Putin got his own puppet on that show. And I remember seeing one episode of Kukli that was based on one of E.T.A. Hoffman's tales, and it derided Yeltsin for giving birth to a tyrannical monster, Putin. But Putin would not be laughed at. Autocrats refused to be the butt of any joke. He not only had Kukli stripped off the air, he put in new owners at NTV, people who were obviously beholden to him. Nor could Putin countenance real reporting, and so he tightened his control over nearly all media. The reflexes of the KGB were now readily apparent: the censorship, the arrests, the kleptocracy. But Putin's techniques were more sophisticated than those that we remember from the Stalin era. He didn't shut down everything, not right away. He ignored literature almost entirely, Sorokin included. He controlled but gave selective permission to some outlets to criticize the government. And so for many years, these outlets, Novaya Gazeta, Echo of Moscow, a radio station, TV Rain among them, acted as a kind of steam valve for the emerging liberal middle class and a showpiece for the regime to show that it too was somewhat democratic. Putin chose his spots. Rather than arrest and imprison all political dissidents, he did so selectively, creating examples, making examples of Mikhail Khodorkovsky or the members of Pussy Riot. Rather than going to the trouble of killing all of his opponents, which is expensive and takes a lot of time and effort, he killed just a few. For example, Boris Nemtsov was assassinated 8 years ago near the gates of the Kremlin, in case anybody was going to miss the message. Similarly, he let Alexei Navalny wage his campaigns against corruption until that became intolerable, and then he tried to kill him. Navalny, of course, survived a poisoning attempt and bravely returned to Russia and was sent immediately from the airport to prison. Since the invasion of Ukraine, Putin's tolerance for alternative versions of or stories about reality have now come to an end. All of those exceptional independent media outlets are now shuttered. Punishment now comes quick. Vladimir Kara-Murza gave an interview to CNN, and he was in prison within a day. 500,000 Russians have assessed the crackdown as long-standing and have fled the country, and many are members of the creative class, writers, artists, people in music and journalism. Now, in 1968, when the Soviet Union invaded Czechoslovakia, 8 people, eight Moscow intellectuals, including the poet Natalia Gorbanevskaya, went to Red Square to protest. They unfurled their banners expressing solidarity with the Prague Spring, and within a minute, maybe two, agents of the KGB descended upon them, beat them up brutally, and in most cases, these people were sent off to jail or prison camps. But what grew out of that brief demonstration of courage, of 8 people in an enormous city that lasted for 2 seconds, was the flowering of the Soviet dissident movement. And today, despite the crackdown, despite the flow of so many Russians out of the country, we're seeing moments of brave resistance. An early series of street demonstrations, a TV producer running behind the anchor on state television with an anti-war sign, a former Army colonel daring to go on a television talk show and describing the futilities and the dangers of the war effort. On May 9th, the day of Putin's Victory Day speech, 2 young tech-savvy journalists posted dozens of anti-war messages and stories on the homepage of lenta.ru, a pro-government news outlet and website. The headlines included these: Vladimir Putin has turned into a pathetic, paranoid dictator. Russia is abandoning its soldiers in Ukraine. Putin's closest associate wants to take Russia back 100 years. These were all stripped off the air within moments, but the resonance to the Red Square demonstration in 1968 was clear. We ought to take some inspiration from such courage. We should not feel smug and somehow superior to the crisis being experienced not only in the war in Ukraine, where the suffering is the greatest, of course, but among ordinary Russians who oppose the war. The autocratic instinct to stifle or extinguish rival stories is hardly foreign to us. The United States is not Russia, and Tucker Carlson does not command the same ubiquity as Putin's propagandists. And yet our vulnerability is made painfully obvious when we see that 40% of our population in the United States believes the last election was stolen. Republican office holders and candidates routinely traffic in conspiracy theories that were once limited to lunatic handbills handed out in places like, I don't know, Penn Station at midnight. We see Trump supporters across the country trying to stifle the study of racial injustice in the schools. We hear about books being put on blacklists, libraries being pressured to restrict access to books deemed obscene or politically undesirable. That's in this country, with a multitude of media, with literature relatively uncensored, with nobody like me being ushered off to jail. As they say in dissident circles, when nothing is true, everything is possible. We've certainly seen that in this country in recent years. As writers and artists, as citizens, we cannot depend on a decent outcome. Alarm is an imperative. Chekhov's characters might not have anticipated the cruelties of the era in front of them, but Chekhov himself, with pitiless realism, understood our predicament. He wrote, "They say that in the end, truth will triumph, but it's a lie." So our obligations, you as artists, even mine as a lower creature, as an editor, are painfully evident. Those obligations begin at home and at the desk and extend to the public sphere. The authoritarian temptation will not recede on its own. Thank you.
In 1941, the Academy created the Award for Distinguished Service to the Arts to honor residents of the United States who have made notable contributions to our country's cultural life. Over the past decades, the members of the Academy have voted to give this award to philanthropists, elected officials, and founders and directors of museums, publishing houses, literary magazines, artist colonies, foundations, theaters, and symphonies. It is my great honor to present the 2022 Award for Distinguished Service to the Arts to Edwin Frank. I have to read the citation. The citation of the Academy reads, "In addition to his own admirable career as a poet and essayist, Edwin Frank founded New York Review Books in 1999 to publish out-of-print books and new translations, and has worked as editor of its classics series for over 20 years. His choice of overlooked titles from all languages, presented in handsome paperback editions, has added to the world's pool of excellent literature. His tireless work on translations has brought them to the highest level of accuracy and eloquence."
Oh, that. Okay, I'll get that in a minute. All right, I was told that I could say a few words, and I promise there'll be very few. And of course, the first one is thank you so much, Lori Moore and the Academy and all of you. This prize came as a tremendous surprise to me, an award for public service, something I never expected. When my children were little, it was usual for them to say about their mother, a psychotherapist, "Mom helps people, Dad publishes books." In any case, in the middle of my life, I was lucky to get a job in which, I later realized, I could do something I had been doing since I was a child: draw up lists of books I wanted to read and find a way to get my hands on them. That these books were books that had never made their way into English or had long since fallen out of print, that there was every evidence no one much wanted to read these books, somehow failed to make much of an impression on me. And after all, it turned out some people did want to read them very much. And of course, none of this is, properly speaking, my doing. It was all helped into existence by others, by Barbara Epstein and Bob Silvers and the New York Review of Books, from which I received the better part of my education, by the members of the Hederman family, by my colleagues at New York Review Books, by the independent bookstores that have given the books a place in the world and found readers for them. Lastly, I'll thank my mother, whose 91st birthday today would have been. This would have made her happy. Thanks.
Since 1909, the Academy has awarded gold medals for distinguished achievement in the arts. The medals are decided by a vote of the entire membership, and they are the Academy's highest honor, and they're given in rotation among 11 disciplines for the entire body of work of the recipient. This year, the medals will be given in drama and in graphic art, and Academy member Hilton Alls will present the gold medal for drama first to Adrienne Kennedy.
In the late 1980s, I worked at the Village Voice. It was a time of great change in New York, and the tumult of it, the poetry of those times, was equal to the great shifts and upheavals to standard ways of thinking about criticism and reporting and writing in general that the Voice published then. You will have noticed that I mention the Times being equal to the writer first. That's how much I wanted to be one and how much I admired those writers the Voice made a home for, including the late Greg Tate and Erica Monk and Jamaica Kincaid and Vince Aletti and Tulani Davis and Guy Trebay and Ellen Willis and Jill Johnson and so many other artist thinkers who not only made a difference to me, but to the world. M. Mark was the paper's literary editor, and in addition to producing the brilliant VLS month after month, Mark would hunt out those books and writers who might help you in your quest to be a writer. She'd run your review so you could learn something about yourself. One day, M passed along a book by a woman I'd never heard of before, Adrienne Kennedy, and the book was called People Who Led to My Plays. I couldn't believe it. For there, in word and image, was the way one's mind thought on its best days, which is to say, Adrienne made there on the page a world guided by intuition and the strong will that goes into style and saying things the way one meant to say them and why. From there, I went on to the great plays, of course, and discovered in her scripts a world where women bled and described it, a world in which families became beasts that fed on one another, and poetry, a world in which dark rooms were illuminated not by light, but a kind of Gothic horror about being touched while touching and longing to be related while not relating. In Adrienne's world, Beethoven talked to black female writers, and Shakespeare mixed with the threat of fascism. Adrienne made a world, too, of pictures and music that converged to make speeches like no other characters I had ever heard of before in this world. Reading her was like entering another universe because it was another universe, and she changed everything and continued to change everything. And here we are, giving her the gold for her radiance and a talent and mind and insight, the likes of which we have never seen before and have grown now to need in all its glorious terribleness. So, the citation from the Academy reads, when Adrienne Kennedy's first plays were produced in the early 1960s, the grand expansiveness of her vision was both understood and embraced, or not at all. Taking as her major theme the inner lives of Black American women, Kennedy's work, poetic, dense, imagistic, funky, real, rejected the tenets of the Black arts movement, say, there was nothing ideological about what she presented on the stage, and yet race framed so many of her monologues, arias really, about loneliness and the crippling effects of the white world on Black skin. And yet she was different in approach than Imamu Baraka Leroy Jones, who founded the Black arts movement after Malcolm X's assassination in 1965. Kennedy didn't want to make work exclusively for Black audiences. She wanted to open up the Black world, the Black female world, to audiences at large. And this she did in one astonishing work after another. Funny House of a Negro, and A Movie Star Has to Star in Black and White, and A Rat's Mass, among other one-acts. They are pure arias of anguish in miniature. Indeed, the majority of Kennedy's short plays taken together show us a universe of hurt that she elevates to poetry through brilliance of execution and understanding of how politics works on the body and how loneliness helps shape the American soul. Adrienne, whose health did not permit her to come to the Academy in person to receive this medal, has sent the following words of acceptance. To the Academy, your gold medal fulfills everything my parents wished for me. Gold stars on my report card. 4 gold stars meant I had achieved and they had achieved. They were called Etta and C.W. Hawkins. Morehouse was where my father went. Atlanta University was where my mother went. They talked of these schools in Atlanta all the time. They talked of a man called Benjamin Mays. I met him once. He was the president of Morehouse. My mother talks constantly about W.E.B. Du Bois. It seems once he had taught at her school, AU. She had many photographs of her on lawns in white dresses and an entire scrapbook of her days there. Du Bois and Benjamin Mays had achieved, just as Paul Robeson had achieved. My father and I heard him sing in a church once. His last song was Waterboy. Marian Anderson, Joe Lewis, A. Philip Randolph, I'd owed it to them. They had done so much for me. There was no reason why I couldn't always get 4 gold stars on my report card. I'm so moved, just a second. There was no reason why I couldn't always get 4 gold stars on my report card. I owed it to these wonderful people who had helped me. Today, I have a gold medal. I am happy. I have made all these people proud of me, and my mother and father, I know they are proud of me, and that makes me very happy. Thank you to the Academy. Thank you. And an extra special treat is someone I haven't seen for many years. I met Adrienne around that time at The Voice. This is her son. I had dinner with him when I was 12. Accepting the medal on behalf of his mother is the writer, publisher, and sometimes collaborator, Adam Kennedy. And Adam, will you come forward and take it home? Oh, there you are. Give him my love. There's our gold medal.
I was going to say one thing.
Sure.
I just wanted to say my mother is my hero, my role model, and I'm so proud of her. Thank you.
This is off script, but one of the pleasures and privileges of having become president is that I get joyful emails now from time to time from Adrienne Kennedy, who really is very happy. Thelma Golden is director and chief curator of the Studio Museum in Harlem, the world's leading institution devoted to visual art by artists of African descent. Under her leadership, her amazing leadership, the Studio Museum has developed an internationally renowned curatorial program, innovative educational initiatives, and continues to be a cultural anchor in Harlem, where they're building new building, which we're all looking forward to seeing through to completion. In 2019, she was the recipient of the Academy's Distinguished Service to the Arts Award, and we're pleased to welcome her back today to present the Gold Medal for Graphic Art.
Good afternoon. I'm deeply honored to present the Gold Medal for Graphic Art to Kara Walker. In 1994, when I was beginning my curatorial career, filled with the promise of what it would mean to create meaningful narratives with the work of contemporary artists, I had the privilege of seeing Kara Walker's work. It was an early exhibition, one that had been described to me, but the description in no way met the actual experience of the works themselves. At that moment, I began to understand the way in which her ingenious, fearless sense, of how to imagine through the making of art would be possible. In all that time since, I have continued to feel the power and possibility in Kara Walker's work. In our work together at the Studio Museum in Harlem, which has collected her work for more than 20 years, where her riveting and formally astonishing creations have been included in the single subject of more than a half-dozen exhibitions. Her project includes painting, drawing, installation, filmmaking, sculpture, printmaking. The breadth of mediums and narrative depth she employs make her one of the most extraordinary artists to emerge in this generation. Kara is best known for her graphic panoramic installations that confront the racist history of the antebellum South. When these works were first created, when first presented in the early 90s, they were often spoken about as looking at our complicated history in America. But what was clear then and even more clear now is that while Kara was making works that were commenting on this racist history of the past, that she also was giving us a profound lens as a way to look at our complicated presence. In these works, she uses cut paper silhouettes, a 19th century technique associated with gentility and family portraiture, to depict the wrenching brutality of human enslavement, sexual violence, and the racialization of the Black body. She frequently references celebrated works of art and visual culture to upend dominant historical narratives. For a recent large-scale installation in the Tate's Turbine Hall in London that ended its presentation in 2020, Fons Americanus, she created a monumental four-tiered fountain inspired by a memorial designed in 1901 to honor Queen Victoria and the British Empire that stands in front of Buckingham Palace. Central to Walker's fountain are the intertwined histories of Europe, Africa, and America, wrought through colonization and the transatlantic slave trade, a traumatic past elided in most works of public memorialization. Kara has approached her work with a fearlessness that is deeply admired. She digs deep, and through her imagining, often creates the space for new understandings. Kara has received many honors over the years, from her MacArthur Foundation Fellowship to her United States Artist Eileen Harris Norton Fellowship, to her election in 2019 as an honorary academician of the Royal Academy of Arts in London. She was elected to membership in this Academy in 2012, and now you have chosen to award this richly deserved gold medal. I will read the citation. Kara Walker, best known for her graphic panoramic installations that confront the racist history of the antebellum South. In these works, Walker uses cut paper silhouettes, a 19th century technique. I've already read this to you in my comments, but we'll read it again in this formality. Walker frequently references celebrated works of art and visual culture that upend dominant historical narratives. For the recent large-scale installation of the Tate's Turbine Hall, Fons Americanus, she created a monumental four-tiered fountain inspired by a memorial designed by 1901. Really, more than anything, what I want to say here, the citation and in my comments, is to speak to the way in which Kara Walker deserves this medal for the ways in which she has changed art and art history. And for that, I am proud not only to present, but to accept this award and read these words from Kara. I couldn't be more humble than to receive the Academy's Gold Medal for Graphic Arts. Thank you to one and all who sat on the selection committee for choosing me, as well as to Thelma Golden for accepting it on my behalf. Sorry I couldn't be there in your esteemed company to raise a toast in celebration. This is much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you all.
Our final award today is a very special honor. The Academy only confers it from time to time, and the recipient is chosen by a vote of the whole membership. The 2022 Medal for Spoken Language will be presented by Academy member and architect Elizabeth Della.
The amount of brain power and talent on this stage is mind-blowing and intimidating. Okay, so the medal for spoken language is not often given, and among the list of diverse recipients were Bill Clinton, Edward R. Murrow, and Paul Robeson, among, just a couple of handfuls. So we have an era-defining president, a pioneering radio broadcaster, and a linguist that was also a baritone. This category collects one-offs that defy the Academy's typical classifications, and Anna Deavere Smith belongs to this category of distinguished misfits. Her work is unique. As a playwright, Anna's scripts are verbatim accounts from the mouths of others, in her voice, in higher fidelity. Somehow the words are sharpened. As an actor, Anna doesn't perform her characters, she inhabits their language. As an activist, Anna doesn't need a megaphone, just a small spotlight and a stage. So from the theater to TV to film, Anna slips seamlessly in and out of mediums as she does characters, and she does thousands of them. And in assuming these characters fully and faithfully, or, quote, borrowing them for a moment, which she explains, Anna never disappears. You're always hyper-aware of her artistry. Anyone who has witnessed Anna on stage knows what I'm talking about. While she embodies characters in the most meticulous way, their mannerisms, their tics, their verbal idiosyncrasies, she also disembodies them. Voices somehow speak to one another. Her soliloquies merge into choruses, monologues become dialogues, individual anecdotes morph into shared narratives. So from disparate, seemingly disparate stories, Anna produces new knowledge and a verbal portrait of a poignant place and time. She redefines the stage as a place of compassion and cold, hard realism. The work is as beautiful as it is subversive. And there's also another Anna. Sometimes when I can't fall asleep and start channel surfing at 3 a.m., I discover Anna on a rerun of West Wing or Nurse Jackie with her unforgettable comic expressions. She has a truly elastic face, including her trademark range of smirks. So I know these jobs subsidize the cultural projects, but I really love that Anna embraces pop culture unapologetically, and she lives a life of this in-between. Anna, as a friend and a fan, I'm happy to present this award to you, and I will read from the citation. The plays of Anna Deavere Smith, written and performed in her groundbreaking documentary style, amplify real voices in the search for justice. Her Fires in the Mirror, nominated for the Pulitzer Prize for Drama, covers the aftermath of a riot in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn in 1991. Twilight, Los Angeles, 1992, covers similar unrest following the acquittals in the Rodney King police brutality case. Writing both plays involved interviewing hundreds of residents that bore witness to and even participated in the unrest. Performing them involved transforming into nearly 40 of these residents through a series of monologues. In telling these stories, Smith explores how residents signal their identities, perceive people different from themselves, and how barriers between groups can be breached. Notes from the Field, her most recent play, explores issues of inequality, the criminal justice system, and contemporary activism. Both on stage and off, Smith demonstrates the power of the spoken word to gather meaning in the face of tragedy. And so, Anna, please come up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. Well, first of all, they let you choose who you would like to have presented to you, and I told them how much I would love it if Elizabeth Diller could do it, and I didn't think she could. And she just came from a whirlwind couple of days, going from Paris to Dallas, back to here, and I'm surprised you didn't faint. Thank you so much, Liz. And thank you, Anthony, and the entire committee that selected me. Cody, and I feel like you, Philip. I feel like, Liz is right, I'm a misfit, and so it's always a privilege and a surprise when I'm awarded in these ways. Cody had written me an email to say, I hope you think this is good news, and of course I was joyful about that. But I had no idea that in coming here today, I would also come in contact again with some of the very seeds of my work, and one of those very important seeds is Adrienne Kennedy. Thank you, Hilton, for your incredible words about her, and Adam, I feel so very privileged to have been able to meet you today. Adrienne Kennedy's movie star in black and white, which I directed at Carnegie Mellon University in 1978, freed me and liberated me. I went to acting school, but not really just to study acting. I wanted to know about the relationship of language to identity. And in a movie star in black and white, a black girl's story and perhaps her neurosis or the pain that you talked about is spoken about on 3 movie sets. Now Voyager with Betty Davis speaking her words, Viva Zapata with Jean Peters speaking her words, and and then finally A Place in the Sun with Shelley Winters and Montgomery Clift. For me, this was liberating to understand that persona and inner life are not the same. The other seed that I have come in contact with again today by surprise is Tania Leon. She is one of the first people who I interviewed. My first play that was ever produced was about her, about a story that she told me, my play Piano, and it's in particular because of the rhythmic way that Tania Leon speaks, not just as a musician, but as a talker. And lastly, I think probably only person who really understands how much the relationship of music and language means to me is Julia Wolf. And for my play, House Arrest, she was hired with her husband, Michael Gordon, as a composer, and to have seen them in our rehearsals running down the hall as if they just raided a candy store with hundreds of my tapes that nobody ever wants to hear. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Tania. And thank you, please thank your mother. This is a day of joy for me.
Well, it's a bad idea to have to speak after Anna Deavere Smith, but before we close, I'd like you, if you would please, to join me in thanking the staff, ably led by our executive director, Cody Upton, who are responsible for everything that has gone on so well today. Thank you to all of our presenters and honorees and all the members of the Academy. I invite you now to join us for a reception on the terrace. If you're in the audience down there, please exit the auditorium on 156th, walk up to Broadway, and you can enter the terrace there. If you're seated on the stage, you should go back up through the complicated series of stairways that brought you down here. There's just enough room for you to get through. And I want to thank you all so much for joining us to honor the achievements of the remarkable artists that we have been celebrating today. See you next year.